Hi, this is Kyle Hirschfeld, and I'm here to talk to you today about the Hue City Massacre, which occurred as part of the Tet Offensive, which was the North Vietnamese struggle to get the South Vietnamese and U.S. forces to capitulate in 1968. Now, four different sources have led me to believe that this was really the turning point of the Vietnam War in terms of how Americans in the United States viewed it. So starting with Robert Kodosky's review of Mark Bowden's Hue 1968, A Turning Point of the American War in Vietnam, which states that Hue as the bloodiest battle of the Vietnam War, wherein 10,000 soldiers and civilians were killed over the course of a month. It caused people in the United States to stop thinking about the Vietnam War as one which was winnable, and rather they thought of the Vietnam War as one which we had to get out of. How best to extract the United States troops in an honorable way. So there were, tactically it was a United States victory. However, it was morally a huge loss, and that was because of the brutalizations which occurred against South Vietnamese citizens living in Hue City and against U.S. soldiers. The pictures of these events made it into the United States media, and they propagated throughout the country. There was butchery on both sides, but the worst of it occurred on the Viet Cong side during Hue City, as Vietnamese American toddlers were actually swung by their bodies, by their heels, and their heads were crushed against walls in order to stop them from becoming future imperialists and thus degrading the communist way. Now, Beverly Keever, who was a reporter on the ground during the Vietnam War for 7 years, goes to Hue City following the reclamation of that city and details her experiences on the ground. She reports that 70% of the civilian structures were just completely demolished, and this was a capital city in Vietnam from the early 1800s to 1945, so it was of great cultural significance. So the fact that all of this was torn down, it's psychologically damaging, especially for those living in South Vietnam. One veteran U.S. Marine of 25 years and 3 wars stated that he'd never seen a city so devastated. Alec Wallman, in his Storming the City, U.S. Military Performance in Urban Warfare from World War II to Vietnam, analyzes the tactical ramifications of the Battle of Hue City, arguing that the United States was ultimately victorious. However, he does allege that prior to the U.S. and South Vietnamese taking the city, the communists had created a list of intellectuals and elites to basically place on a kill list or to blackmail into joining their imminent counterattack in order to save face. However, Andrew J. Basovich, in his U.S. Conduct in the Vietnam War, argues the opposite. He says that the list which was created wasn't actually for Hue City, it was for the area around Saigon. So the actions which happened in Hue City, the deaths of the civilians, the atrocities committed there, were not planned, as Wallman would have it. And as U.S. government analyst Douglas Pike, contemporary, would have had it, but rather the result of necessity and of propaganda. So there is argument as to whether the massacre of civilians was premeditated or not, but there is no argument as to the psychological damage that this capture of Hue City had on both South Vietnamese civilians as well as United States citizens. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.